All right. So Jen's been working for 20 plus years, programs that host schools in a camp setting for day and overnight programs throughout the country. Jen started out as an instructor teaching natural and cultural history to primarily 4th through 6th grade groups. And in the last 15 years has taken on more leadership and administrative tasks like program development and coordination, budget management, and staff management. During Jen's experiences in staff management, Jen's hired a variety of people from around the world, training them on site-specific curriculum, group management skills, and providing them relevant feedback on their performance. Jen enjoys watching staff grow in their teaching and facilitation skills and providing them with professional development opportunities like Project Wet, Wild, and Project Learning Tree. Jen is originally from Northern Indiana, the South Bend, Mishawaka area, and an undergrad from Goshen College. Jen was on the before moving to Texas to be a Texas Outdoor Education Center coordinator, Nature Day Camp coordinator at Camp Tesoro, which is about 45 minutes.
Tesoro,
there we go, which is about 45 minutes southwest of Fort Worth. Currently laid off furlough status and actively looking for the next great adventure in outdoor environmental education. So let Jen know if you know of any relevant jobs that might bring her back to the Midwest. And I highly recommend that. So if you know in this area, get some contacts going on. So
yep, definitely.
Honestly sounds a lot like my background in outdoor education. So I've learned my 6 years
definitely.
YMCA store camps, teaching primarily 5th and 6th grades. So some of us have a very similar backgrounds in that. So just some reminders as we go through this, just to keep yourself on mute. There's definitely gonna be times where take yourself on mute, ask questions. There's not a ton of us in here, so you can ask questions through either the chat features on Zoom or on Whova. We'll be monitoring both of those. And then there'll also be time for questions at the end before the next thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it over to Jen, just for some good tips and tricks there, because I know, especially this year of COVID, even people who have been in their position for a long time have suddenly found themselves laid off, furloughed, finding other options of, I thought I would live here for the rest of my life maybe, and now I have an apartment and no job. So I look forward to hearing what you have done.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was having issues pulling up my PowerPoint, so I'm just going to go off my notes. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. And, you know, this is one person's perspective on hiring and tips and tricks with the interview process. You talk to somebody else that's a hiring manager, their perspective is going to be a little bit different. Hopefully I can give you some tips and tricks on what I feel is valuable, and like I said, everybody, you know, that I've talked to that does hiring does it a little bit different. As mentioned in my bio, I am originally from the South Bend area, born and raised. I went to Penn High School in Mishawaka, and then went to Goshen College for undergrad. I was one of those that went into college with I know I want to work in the outdoors. How does that look? Was fortunate to go to Goshen College, connect with Mary Lee a little bit, with doing some research out there, as well as you know, going down to the Florida Keys for a semester and studying abroad for a semester. Recently, again, I'm down here in Granbury, Texas. Found myself in the job hunt again because of COVID, and so hopefully I can give some advice from the applicant side as well as things that I found that were helpful for me in landing jobs previously, and hopefully the next one as well. And so with my experience, with hiring, I typically hire within outdoor ed centers, probably 6 to 12 staff regularly. I've also run summer camps where I'm hiring up to 40 staff. So that's sort of where I come from with hiring, where I'm trying to fill multiple positions, where somebody else might be coming from a position that they're looking to hire one person for a position and not hiring again for another couple of years, just because there's a very low turnover, where I'm hiring 3 times a year. So when I get into an interview with hiring somebody, I know probably within about 10 minutes if they're going to be a good fit with what they're doing. But figuring out where you feel like you fit in within the realm of environmental education. There's so many options out there. And as you probably have gone through the conference so far, I've connected with a variety of people that are doing environmental ed in completely different ways or completely similar ways. Some of the places that I've been thinking about with making a good fit in environmental ed is working with like city and county parks. They typically need or have naturalist positions. And they're hiring pretty regularly. Usually those departments also have internships, so you're able to connect with them to get some practical experience within the environmental ed realm. Looking at state and national parks and becoming an interpretive naturalist or a conservation officer. Again, you're connecting with the public, more group programming versus school programming, which I'll connect with here in a second. Where I have a lot of experience in, as well as government jobs. So looking like, again, Department of Natural Resources, state parks, national parks, fish and wildlife, forestry departments, Bureau of Land Management. So you might be doing some of that conservation type of work, but also educating the public. Like years ago, I volunteered on the Appalachian Trail and was helping doing some trail maintenance. And as through hikers or our day hikers were coming through, we were talking about how we were fixing the trail and all of that. So that's just sort of those impromptu types of conversations. Where I have most of my experience, and I think where Jess has a lot of her experience as well, is in the residential outdoor science school realm. That's what they call it on the West Coast. I was out in California for about 7 years, and they call it ROS programs. I've also heard it called residential outdoor environmental education, really where schools will come to a camp-like setting, stay for a day, or typically will stay for 3 days, 2 nights. Out west, it's usually 4 days, 3 nights. Sometimes you'll get a week-long program, which is a neat concept because you get to see kids in an outdoor setting for a week, and just how they come together as a group is really, really fascinating to me. We have soil and water conservation districts, have educators. I feel like that's a very Midwest type of scenario. I didn't see that a lot out west or out east. Then, also K through 12 teachers, they're utilizing their outdoor labs. I've talked to several teachers that are interested or have outdoor learning labs at school. So rain or shine, they're taking their kids out and utilizing professional development, or not professional development, but curriculum like Project Wet, Learning Tree, or, just to get their kids outside and experiencing nature. Another line as a university professor. I have a friend that I met out in Oregon years ago that, she knew she wanted to be a professor, and she's now working for UC San Diego as an aquatic ecology professor, is teaching, but is also doing the science that she's passionate about. So there's just a lot of those university professors, whether it's out west, University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, IU has a good recreation department, Purdue. We're looking at like forestry and all of that. Goshen College with Mary Lee and their environmental ed masters as well. Another area to think about fitting into is like environmental ed nonprofits, thinking about like Sierra Club and the Nature Conservancy, nature parks or nature centers. Or if you're looking more looking at policy and advocacy and environmental ed, an organization like the Hoosier Environmental Council is focused on policy and changing policy and educating people about new topics related to the environment. And then another one that I just kind of threw in there was zoos and aquariums. Talking a little bit about conservation education. That's one of those areas that people are a little on the fence with. I worked at a zoo for a little bit, and it was like, I like the education part, but I don't know if I like animals on exhibit. But it's, if that's your thing and you're passionate about animals and their care and sharing that information, that's a great area to look at as well. Anybody have any other suggestions or thoughts that where they might think they fit in?
I was gonna say too with this one too, Jen's probably not gonna be screen sharing today, just because PowerPoint's being a little snotty. So if you want to flip on your video,
Yeah.
post your beautiful faces, we would love to see who's here. I do
All
like.
right, so I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, those are great lists you gave though, because I mean, there's just so many areas where even when you start volunteer places, like, oh man, this is available, or this place has an interpretive naturalist. Like, it's just kind of like your world explodes. So I love hearing all those different areas.
Yep, definitely. So yeah, it's definitely some good places to start branching out. Volunteering is a good option, and just seeing what the pulse is of that organization and all that. So really, some of the areas that I look for jobs. Like I mentioned, I'm actively looking for a job, and some days there's very few options that I'm interested in, and other times there's which one do I apply for all the 10 of these jobs that seem really exciting, and so you start putting your resume feelers out there. One place that I go to regularly is NAAEE, the North American Association of Environmental Education. They have a whole job board, and it has a variety of opportunities, whether it's a naturalist or environmental educator in a camp setting, to park naturalists, to scientists, administrative type of things. So it's a pretty much a catch-all for a variety of different environmental education related positions. Related to that, make sure you're checking also with your state environmental ed associations. Most of them are affiliates of NAAEE. So the Environmental Ed Association of Indiana is the Indiana affiliate to NAAEE. So with that membership with the state association, you're going to get access to jobs that they are sending out via email, and each state seems to have one. There's the California Association of Outdoor Ed, or Outdoor and Environmental Education. Down here in Texas, there's quite a few. There's the Texas Association of Environmental Education, the Texas Outdoor Ed Association. There's the Texas and Children in Nature one. So so to an extent, it kind of feels overwhelming, but it's great to have all those different opportunities. So connecting with those associations and taking advantage of things like conferences, so you can connect with people and go, hey, can I job shadow you? Can I talk with you for a couple minutes about what you do? Because I'm kind of interested in that, but I want to learn more. If you're looking more for the recreation and parks side of things, there's the National Recreation Parks Association, I think. And again, they have a job board, and then each state has their own chapter as well. So I've been on the Indiana Parks and Rec job page. I've been up in Michigan's as well. So just checking those out for jobs if you're looking for a specific state or region that you're looking to move to potentially. I also have written down the ADA, which is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. They have jobs, whether it's interns positions or educator positions, or working with the animals directly, or more fundraising development type of positions. If you're looking to go towards the government side of things, and you're a college student or a recent college graduate, USA Jobs and the Pathways program is a neat way to connect into it. So you will potentially connect with the national parks, the Bureau of Land Management, which is land managed by the government. And I know there's more to that one, but national forests. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Then also utilize your, if you're in college or a recent college graduate or have connected with professors, use your professors and colleagues as reference, because they're gonna know you well, and will be able to give you insight into connecting with other people. If you haven't noticed, networking is a big thing, and making those connections is important. So like I know Marion has the Eco Lab, Stephanie Shook is down there, she would be able to give you some insights. Mary Lee with a master's in environmental education seems to get it around the state and even internationally. Purdue has the student chapter of EEAI, or at least they did at one point, and connecting with them, with their leader. Her name is escaping my brain right now, but using those student chapters to network again and see where potential jobs are. And then also have gone with the Facebook. Facebook seems to be a big place to look for jobs anymore as well. There's several different groups. Some of them that I look at regularly, and with knowing that I'm a huge outdoor ed, environmental ed person, I look at outdoor ed jobs. There's some that are posted pretty regularly there. Indiana sustainability jobs, wildlife and fisheries job board, outdoor recreation jobs, green jobs network, camp jobs, outdoor instructor jobs. University of Wisconsin Stevens Point has a group that's the Environmental Education and Interpretation Program, Environmental Ed Career Network. So again, pretty much type in a search bar and of where you feel like you want to go, county jobs, type of deal. Then you also have the National Association of Interpretation, NAI, that posts jobs regularly and does interpretation. They also have a certification called the, what is it? I've written down somewhere. The Certified Interpretive Guide. If we get to professional development towards the end, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then if you are, again, a camps person, the American Camp Association sends out year-round jobs, and those are more natural positions within a camp setting. So more of what I do with hiring staff for 3, 6, 9 months out of the year. And then last but not least, connecting at conferences is another place to look for jobs and make those connections. And just really in this current atmosphere of COVID and all of that, it just seems like there's a lot of hiring freezes and people not necessarily expanding programs right now, just because we don't, I work a lot with school groups, and schools don't seem to be doing a whole lot of field trips, but are open to going to the school and using their schoolyards types of things. So my best advice with that is to stick with it and be resilient with it, because with that job will land when it's time. Questions? What questions do people have at this point?
Hey Jen, this is Leslie. I just wanted to mention, turn on my video here, if it'll come on. I just wanted to mention there's also a site called Conservation Careers, and that's a fabulous site to go to. It offers help with all kinds of things, and you don't have to be a member. If you're a member, you get extra things, but you don't have to be a member for them to send you their conservation board, which will show you jobs all over the world. And you can pick different areas in which you want to look into as well. But they've got workshops and all kinds of things to help people out. But it's one that I found to be really good in the conservation world. But they also do like people who are switching careers and administration and different areas that you don't think about. So that's another really good one for people.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. I haven't looked that one up. When we're done here, I'm going there.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. So as you can see, there's just a lot of knowledge out there of people, and can connect you with a variety of jobs or where to look. So I guess delving into the next topic, which is interviews, tips and tricks. This is where I will probably spend a little bit of time, but I will on the articles that I posted and in the on the app, I'll download some areas of, or some tips and tricks as well. So you have some resources. But again, hiring managers are all different. You know, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, one person might be hiring one person every couple of years. There's people in my scenario that are hiring 3 times a year, multiple people for the same position. So it just really depends on their personality and what they're looking for. But usually they have an idea of the type of person that they feel like will be a good fit within their culture and within their position. And the interview is getting to know the applicants a little bit better. We've looked at where to hire, you put in or where you can apply, but once you've applied, send in your resume, send in your cover letter. Just one question that it seems to pop up regularly with hiring managers is, tell me about yourself. And this is I'm doing a little bit of research coming in. There's a woman that does a podcast. It's called Your Career Story. It's more for high-level business CEOs, but I've been pulling some tidbits out. And the woman that talks is her name is Jenna Viviano. And she does a lot of stuff related to LinkedIn as well. But her episode 44 was the foolproof way to answer, tell me about yourself. And some of the things that she mentions is think about before you get into the interview, define your brand, define how you want to present yourself, and have a rock solid answer to that. Because I would say 9 times out of 10, you're going to get hey, tell me about yourself. And they're really just asking, how can you as the interviewee help me in the employer, as the employer? What kinds of skills are you bringing to the table that help me in this environmental ed job or position that I'm hiring for? Think back about times where you've had that question asked, and how well do you feel like you did? What could you tweak? And that question is not there to walk through your resume. They have your resume sitting on their desk. So, tell them about your passion, tell them about your strengths, tell them where you want to go. And that's also, you don't want to just feel uncomfortable and stumble through it. So make sure you're prepping for that. But you want to engage in your story, tell them tell them a little bit about yourself. Do research the job description before you get into that question, so you know what they're looking for and what skills you bring that match that to that job description. And it's one of those evolving processes, where I was 2 years ago looking for a job, and where I am now, I am in a different spot, looking for different things. So updating that and figuring out where I want to go, and sharing that passion in telling my story to the interviewer or the hiring manager. And make it short and sweet and to the point. I throw in the elevator speech, the 2-minute spiel about who you are and where you're coming from and where you're going. And just moving away from that tell me about yourself question, before you get into the interview, know your strengths. Like, there's so many personality tests out there anymore, like the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, there's the colors, Strength Finders 2.0. I recently did an interview with an organization that had me go through the Strength Finders, and then we followed through with a conversation later in the interview about where my strengths lie, and so that helps them figure out how the applicants know where would potentially fit in with their staff that have already taken that Strength Finders test, which was kind of a neat process. Other things to think about while you're in the interview, reflect on what you've learned from your previous experiences, whether it's college classes, internships, previous jobs that brought you to this interview. You know, like if they, one question they may ask is, you know, talk to me about your public speaking, you know, because you're going to be out, skills, because you're going to be out talking with the public. And so you may go, oh, I've never had a formal, like, you know, standing outside with a group of kids presenting a lesson, but have you done a classroom presentation for a college class that you've taken? So pulling in those relevant experiences, which can be hard in the moment when you seem to be caught, or I get caught off on questions. But again, draw from your experiences. And there are three different ways that people are doing interviews anymore. In-person ones, which are kind of on hold. So dress appropriately when you're doing those types of interviews. And it's a great way to see the organization and meet other employees that are working there. Another way, like right now, is doing video conferencing. I do a lot of this, especially when I'm hiring people outside of the state or over the location that I'm at. Even hiring internationally is, you know, using the video conferencing aspect is a great way to read body language and just gives you a little bit better idea of the whole picture of who that person is. So make sure you're dressing appropriately for those video conferences. You know, they can just, you know, see from your head down to your waist. So, you know, think about how you're presenting yourself in that aspect. I mean, if you've never done a video conference before, make sure you're practicing. If we get to a couple of scenarios here that I've had applicants do, and you go, where are you coming from with that? But and then the last way is phone calls. I've done several phone call interviews. So with that, you know, it's less personal. You're not seeing the person, but remember to smile, remember to breathe, remember to be yourself during those interviews. All right, we've got a couple more minutes here. So really some do's and don'ts in the interview process. Make sure you're, again, researching the job description. That is your best place to find what they're specifically looking for. Remember to breathe and smile, but keep it natural. Don't look frozen or stiff or stare into the camera and give them that look. It's okay to be nervous. I take that as that you want to do it as a hiring manager, that you want to do a great job. But also, again, remember to breathe, take a second and answer your questions. Make eye contact, especially in person or on a video, looking into the camera if you're doing a video conferencing one. Don't cross your arms or your legs. It may seem closed off. Be enthusiastic, but genuinely show your personality. Like I tend to be a little bit more on the introvert side and detail side. So me jumping around, bouncing off the walls is not necessarily what you're going to get in that scenario, but your enthusiasm will come across. Make sure you're expressing gratitude at the beginning and at the end of the interview, appreciating that the hiring manager's time. And then, at the end of the interview, if you have a good sense, at the end of the interview, thank them, and then take some time to decide if this job is a good fit for you. And if it's not a good fit, please let the hiring manager know. Ghosting is not fun on either side, not knowing if you've got a job or not knowing if somebody's interested in a position. Some don'ts in doing interviews. Don't sit on your couch and then get up and let your dog out and then come back and lay back down on your couch. I've had that happen. I'm guilty of this one. Don't have your barking dog in the background. Like for this interview or for this scenario, my dog's upstairs in my bedroom. Don't excessively walk around during a phone interview. It gives the impression that you're super nervous and your true personality is not necessarily coming out. Don't move your computer, laptop, tablet on the video conferencing to point out the window to go, oh, look, there is something outside that you should see. I've also had a person that did a Skype interview on his phone, and he was, when he was answering the question, he was looking into the phone, and then when he was listening to me, he would hold it up to his cheek I didn't necessarily want to see his bearded face. It does happen though. And then, and then don't ghost the interviewer after the interview. Like if you know you're like, okay, this is not what I want, make sure you're communicating with them, saying, hey, thanks for the opportunity, and we're gonna, I don't think this is a good fit for me, thanks, and that's it. I really don't need to explain more than that. And then really a big do during interviews, do ask questions, okay? Because you're doing, this interview is not necessarily solely for the hiring manager to interview you, it's your chance to interview them. So really, asking questions like, of the hiring manager, how long have you been with the company? How did you get here? What is your leadership or communication style? What do you enjoy most about your work? What do you most like about the organization? Ask about fit, like what types of people win here? What types of people have failed here? What is the company's culture like? Ask for clarification. What are the key areas of responsibility? If you're like, I haven't gotten that out. I'm a detailed person with hiring, so I'm going to give you a day-to-day, how much you're going to get paid, for offering housing and stuff like that. But if you're not getting that, get that clarification. How does this role help the team win? How will my performance be measured? So asking those questions is important, because for me as a hiring manager, as I'm going through questions and get to the end and go, okay, do you have any more questions? And I think you've answered them all. Like, I'm sure you've got some questions, so have them set up. When I'm doing an interview, I have my list of questions next to me, and if they've not answered them, then I'm going to sit there and ask a couple of the questions just for clarifications. How are we doing on time, Jessica?
You're doing fantastic. This session will go till 11:15. So
Okay.
keep on going. This is great. And I definitely
Okay, cool.
probably have some of those stories in our head going on of like, yep, been through this in an interview, or
Right. What are some that you've encountered, Jess?
I think just talking about resumes, just when people come here, there's some positions where the resume matters more than others. There's some where it's like, hey, if it's especially more for younger people, I want them just to practice writing those resumes for the first time and using them. But even one of my last hires probably had 30 people apply for a larger position. And I would say I probably dumped 2/3 of the resumes at the beginning, not because they weren't great. They told me all about themselves. Some of them in many pages told me all about themselves and their experiences, and made no connection to the position we were offering at all. And so that was just really important of like, cool, you've had these jobs. But even in their cover letter, there was no connection to the job we're offering. So just how important it is to read the job description and make some connections in there as far as how they see themselves in our company. It's kind of the same thing, when you're doing grant writing, you read those descriptions because there's some very specific words that they want you to use. So.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Resumes and cover letters are an interesting piece of application material. I've looked at resumes and go, okay, I've worked there. I'm going to call the people that are there and go, okay, hey, tell me about Jen. She's applied for a position here. So again, going back to that network as well is important. But in the business world, I've heard that resumes, hiring managers, take less than a second to look at each resume. And especially if there's a stack of them like Jess has had. So making sure that you do stuff in your resume to stand out. So tell me what you've done. And again, with the cover letter, connecting back to the job description, just so that we can see how you see relating and fitting in with the organization and that position that you've applied for. Cool. Um, and with being on furlough myself and being laid off, I've taken some time to do some readings as well. One book that I have connected with and I need to reread it's by Ken Coleman. It's called The Proximity Principle, and it really walks you through how, who you should be networking with, how to update your resume, and also how to get involved, whether volunteering or working within an organization to have a better idea of a field is where you want to be. So as a hiring manager, I'm going to transition into a little bit of some of the questions that I ask most while we're sitting in an interview. For me, as again, it is dependent on the hiring manager. For me, if I'm on an interview for about 45 minutes to an hour plus, I know that I've built a good relationship with that person. Somewhere less than that, then I'm like, okay, sort of evaluating whether they're a great fit. But some of the questions, again, is tell me about yourself, which we covered a little bit about. Asking questions related to the job description. So at my last position, we did a lot of outdoor education, so teaching students, and also doing some outdoor rec activities like canoeing and archery. So I will ask a question like, okay, so tell me a little bit about your experience, whether it's a participant or as an instructor in teaching, outdoor rec activities like canoeing, rock climbing, archery, those types of activities. I'm one of those that is going to phrase a question more like, tell me about a time, tell me a little bit more about this, tell me more about that. We teach environmental education here that is correlated to the state standards. So tell me a little bit about your experience in teaching classes related to geology, forestry, aquatic studies, and pulling in that types of information. Also, I'm gonna, one question I ask a lot about is professionalism. Like you're representing our organization, whether when you're leading a group, but then also when you go out into the community. For a couple of years, I was at Bradford Woods, which is IU's Outdoor Ed Center. And we walk into Martinsville and you wear something Bradford Woods, they automatically, oh, 5th grade, and it's, it's an amazing cultural experience to have. And so, I'm not only representing myself on the organization on property, but I'm also representing it out in the community, and so I've had kids come up to me at the Morgan County Fair going, hey, Bradford Woods, and the parents are like, who is that person? And you have to explain, oh, you came to Bradford Woods, and having that professionalism in the organization and outside. So tell me about, so I would ask the questions to an effect of, tell me about professionalism. How do you view professionalism? And don't use professionalism in the answer either. I'm also going to talk about customer service because with my outdoor ed programs, it's you're providing a service to your customers, and most customers, it's the word of mouth. I've had multiple school groups come to a program because they have heard it from their peer teachers at another school, or a teacher that has switched schools and is bringing their schools out to the program. So how you relate to your clients, whether it's students, teachers, or parents, because we have had a lot of parent chaperones. So asking about customer service and how you would help our clients as they progress through their experience. Another question I might ask about is project leadership or project management. I know I recently got asked this in an interview, and I with 20 years experience, I blanked on what projects have I done, and I pulled something from grad school. I went to Sacramento State for my master's in recreation administration, and pulled something out of there. And then after the interview, I got off and I was like, oh, I should have mentioned this, and this. So that's, that reflection. for the, for future interviews. But like, talk to me a little bit about some projects that you've worked on and how did it go? And this is a good place to draw from, class experiences, internships, previous jobs. Another question I'm going to ask about is, what are your strengths? What do you feel like you bring to this position? And that kind of goes back to the, the personality tests and having that as an awareness. Another question is, I'm going to ask is, what do you know about our organization? And that tells me whether or not you've done your homework or not of doing your research on the organization. I've had applicants say, "Oh, I know you're in Indiana," or you're in Texas, and just really not spent any time researching the organization. So really with researching the organization, making sure that you know what their mission, vision, and values are, what events do they have coming up, what have they been in the news about, or proud about it in their Facebook feeds and Instagram feeds. So asking those types of questions just so I have an idea of whether or not you're going to do some of the legwork before the position. Because ultimately, these interviews are a way for me as the hiring manager to figure out a good fit, and also you as the interviewee, if this is a good fit for you. And then in the interview process, I've also had some interesting questions that, posed to me as an applicant. One was, describe the color yellow how would you describe the color yellow to somebody that's blind? Okay, and it's one of those questions that is meant to think about how quickly you can think on your feet. And I shared it and my answer, and the hiring manager was like, "Oh, that was a really good answer." So I must have done a decent job with it then. Another one is, what superpower would you want and why? And I've been asked that a couple of times. I've also been asked, what would you want your epitaph on your headstone to be? Or other, so those are some of the more unique questions that aren't necessarily asked in every single interview that I've ever had, but just some of the ones that seem to pop up occasionally to show how quickly you can think on your feet. Let's see. And then usually for me as a hiring manager, once I've asked my questions, given you an opportunity to answer your questions, I will let you know what next steps are. So like next steps. Okay, so it doesn't look like I have your references. Go ahead and send me your references, and I'll send you, collect that information. Also, I need a background check for most of the organizations I've worked for. I've required that because you're working with kids. And then usually if since I'm a hiring manager hiring for 10 to 12 positions, I have usually a good sense if I'm going to bring you on, have the intention of bringing you on. Hey Jen, appreciate your time. You got some great experiences, and I really, value your time here. So the quicker we can get through this process, the quicker that I can then, potentially bring you on. So, and that's me as a hiring manager, again, hiring for quite a few staff, versus, I've been on the interviewee side, the applicant side, and those that are hiring for one position that hopefully they fill and that person stays for several years. It's more of a, hey, so thank you for your time. We're gonna go through references. We've got a few more interviews, and we'll let you know as soon as possible. So you can typically towards the end of an interview have an idea of if they're interested in you. As an applicant, you also need to figure out if you're interested in that position as well.
I think, Jen, there's been some really good questions that were just asked in the group chat. I kind of just put out there too, also, for people to tell us what is their favorite hiring question to ask or have been asked. But there's couple, they're looking for just some tips or just discussion points for others of how do disabled people fit into this hiring process that so often focuses on abled and neurotypical communication styles and judgments. And has also asked, also just how do older job seekers fit into some of this hiring process?
Right. Yeah, just going in with focusing on the, because I pulled up the chat box as well. I'm one of those visual type of people. You know, those that, you know, for those that, you know, have different abilities, I working at Bradford Woods kind of opened my eyes to working with a variety of different people, whether it's international staff that are coming to a new culture or working with people with disabilities. Because if you don't know, Bradford Woods is, I use Outdoor Center, and during the summer they do summer camp specifically for people with disabilities, and make a concerted effort to bring staff on that have disabilities as well, just to help with the connections and also the value that they bring to an organization. And you know, so again, having in an interview, and hiring people on. I've hired people with disabilities. It's just, you know, I again truly want to see what you can, what value you bring to my organization, because I also know that having staff that are very diverse, whether it's abilities, nationalities, is a great way to show our participants that are coming out that there are a variety of people out there, and we can work together as a whole, and have that tone set of an example set to our participants that come out. So, you know, if you're, you know, interviewing with a hiring manager, or you don't feel like you're getting through to hiring managers through that process because of potential disabilities, that may not necessarily be an organization that you want to work for, because they really not clearly defined how and who they want to work for. They may just feel like, okay, here's my box, and this is the people that we want to bring in. And for me, Bradford Woods was more of that intentional of, okay, let's really look at who we're bringing in, and being intentional about bringing people in with diverse abilities, diverse cultures, diverse personalities. So, because I realize at least with school groups, kids connect with different people. So the quiet kids are going to connect with the quieter staff member, where the louder kids are going to enjoy the more enthusiastic, louder staff. So it's, yeah, Jamie, I hope I answered your question. I don't know if that was helpful or not. And then for older job seekers, I put myself in that category. You know, it's one of those scenarios where I feel like, for me as an older job seeker, I try to figure out, you know, and this has been a clarifier for me in figuring out what ability, or where do I really want to go next? You know, do I want to stick in the camp scenario, and or do I want to move outside of that? Because getting up at midnight to do an on-call type of scenario in a cabin is not necessarily my favorite thing at midnight, but it's, you know, part of the job responsibilities. So redefining what I want to, where I want to be going, and, you know, again, being that hiring manager, I feel like I'm switching hats. Being a hiring manager, I've hired staff that are older for entry-level positions, or even because they're looking to switch careers. And I also realize the value and knowledge that they bring, because they have a great skill set that could potentially translate over to the position, as well as gleaning off to the other the other staff that I have. You know, because with my scenario where I'm hiring 10 to 12 staff members, I'm going to have people that are brand new and have never taught residential outdoor environmental education before, and somebody in that position that has done it before can, you know, more easily share that knowledge and that position, you know, and teaching techniques and stuff like that that I may miss as a manager because I'm focused on other aspects of whether connecting with our kitchen staff or whatnot. So that's, I value that, having that diversity again within a group of the, age ranges again and different experiences.
I'd love to hear if any of the rest of you on here have just some answers to those last two questions in the chat, because I know those ones are kind of difficult. And also work environment, a lot of kids or the counselors, at least in a camp environment, that come up through programs or through our rental grants facilities, they're also ones that seek you out as future jobs, whether like in a for summer staff or some of the other things we do. And so I know like at our camp, like we serve the Indiana deaf camps. We also have a lot of Hispanic Latino groups, and so English is not always a first language. And so it's just really important having those responsibilities of the job. And so I'm not necessarily looking for a specific person. Sometimes we make this picture of the person that we want versus the role we want them to fill. So I love when people can teach me how they would fill that role, because I might have an idea of what that person may be like who can fill those responsibilities, but I get schooled all the time of how other people can fill those roles and responsibilities. Crickets.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything pop up, so.
Oh. For the rest of you guys on here, are there things that you want to know, or just a quick experience you may want to share of just for the good or for the bad, something that sticks out on you on just your job searches over the years? What stuck out as you interviewed or looked at some other place? What sticks out to you when you see job advertisements? Like if you're looking at, say, I'll pick out ACA, American Camp Association, when people put out the thing, is it going to matter to you or when they don't post the salary range? I've seen ones posted where I don't even know the camp's name after I read the job description. I see an email and I might get a clue of who they're involved with, but the title of the company is not even in the job description. So what are those things just for you guys out here that matter to you, or just some of those experiences that have stuck out?
I've learned not to get attached to a job that I'm actually applying for, because in most of the cases, a lot of people do not get back to you and let you know that you haven't been chosen for that, even when you have actually gone through the interview process. And so I've learned that it's best not to, throw your hopes all into one, and just realize that that's just the way some people are, and they're not going to get back to you, and getting all upset about it and trying to force them to answer you isn't going to make it better. It's just going to make it worse. So that's been my recent experience.
Yeah, the whole ghosting scenario anymore, like I've seen it on both sides, like the hiring manager that doesn't respond back, or you get a blanket email, or a generic email like weeks after you've applied and you're like, I forgot about that job, or the applicant that has, you go, hey, send them an email like, hey, thanks for talking with me, send me your information, and they don't respond. And it's like, okay, please, please at least respond that you don't want the job, or you don't want to continue the job process. And I also realize that it's a generational thing as well. Like I'm one of those, tell me, and potentially different generations view it from a different take, which I would love to understand a little bit better.
Well, yeah, I think it's just a matter of treating people the way you'd want to be treated. And I think anybody in that scenario, no matter what, would want to know one way or the other, period. And if that's the case, no matter how old you are or where you are in the process, it's way better to let people know than not know.
Right. Yeah. I feel like email is very generic. So, and you don't have to pick up. I remember back in the day, you'd have to pick up the phone, call, and it's less personal with an email. So you don't have to have that immediate pressure of telling somebody what you feel like is face to face. So.
Right.
Yeah, I think one of the lessons I learned too, in just hiring my outdoor education coordinator, that was a brand new position for our company. And one of the things that was going to be a big part of that was curriculum writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some things I felt really good about how I did it as a hiring, and others where I'm like, oops, missed that mark. And on that one, with curriculum, we wanted to see just their curriculum writing styles, what they could come up with. And knowing that they could be on different levels of their masters at this, or they're just starting. But just to see what they'd come up with, and we wanted to see, how they could they do the research to connect it to state standards, add some children's literature resources in there. And so it was really good. I used from their interviews of just as far as their passions, tell us, something that you know a lot about and something that you want to learn more about. And I chose two of those things then for them to write curriculum on. So the one that they're really passionate about, and also the one that they don't know a lot about anymore. And so that went well. But then we got some comments back and this was kind of before the final interview. So this was like my top 3-4 people. And I started getting the comments back of like, oh, that's a great way to get a lot of curriculum for your, company. And one was really worried that if they use that curriculum from their future place, like, hey, this other place owns this. And I'm like, oh, crud. Like, because I had the best of intentions there. I wasn't using it as curriculum for our camp. I was like, and so I had to make sure that I immediately, once I got some of that feedback, went back to all of them to say, hey, here's my intentions with this, is to see your writing stuff you can create. You guys own this curriculum. I'm not going to use it. If you would be hired here and write curriculum here, we're going to use it. But right now, what you create, it is yours.
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing sometimes you have the best of intentions of things and it goes really badly. And just to hop on that pretty quick.
Yep, definitely. Well, and it looks like it's almost 10:15 at this point, so I'm not seeing any more questions pop up. So Jess and Leslie, thank you for jumping in and adding some information as well. I appreciate the different perspectives. I did attach two articles, one by Ken Coleman, which is a resume guide website. So he's got some great resources that are free, but by no means do you need to delve into paying for stuff if you don't have the financial means to. But he has a unique take on resumes, to look at. And then Jenna Viviano has also got a lot of interview guide questions and stuff like that. Again, there's some resources you can pay for or resources that are free. So, dig if you need that.
Where did you attach that information?
What was that?
Where did you attach that information?
It should have been with the on the app. It's the
On Whova?
Wahoo app, yeah.
On the community boards on some of those starters.
Yeah, they're there as well. I don't have the app pulled up, but
yeah.
But yeah, and I can link those as well. As well as I did have a couple of the boards in that area in one.
Yeah, so just a reminder, everybody on those community boards, like,
there you go.
Participate in those, open them up, add your comments. There's a lot of great resources in there. It does get you up on the leaderboard, so you do get points for participating in that. But I just, as we wrap up, I totally just want to thank you. This is a timely topic, no matter the, to just share those resources there. So also just kind of a reminder to make sure when you click on the agenda in Whova, under this session, it says at the bottom, rate session. That is our evaluations for this, and we absolutely read those evaluations as we are planning for the next year. So please leave your evaluations. You do get points for those also for the leaderboard. Next up at 11:30, there is a panel session for non-formal educators. I get to present on that one and not moderate. So I'm really excited. Jules is going to be on there, and Cinda and Krista. So it's going to be a fun panel.
It sounds like it.
And at 1 o'clock, from 1 to 4, Rachel Larimore is doing a 3-hour interactive presentation. So it will have some breakout times on there. And then there's a panel session for K through 12 track from 5:30 to 6:30 tonight. And then the keynote with Rachel Larimore. So there's a lot of great stuff going on there. Also, just got a quick question. Where are the auction items? We decided not to do a silent auction this year, but we will be bringing it back next year. So just with everything that was going on with getting to know the app and stuff is something that we knew we could do. But I think people are already a little bit overwhelmed with things. But that may also be a thread if you have something cool you want to offer for auction stuff that you can throw in one of the community message boards. So just a reminder, there's a photo and photo caption contest. So if you're on the Whova app on your device, go have fun with that. Okay, so thank you guys, and we will see you in the next session.
All right, cool. Thank you all.